Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another Second Breakfast podcast. I'm Andy Roth, alongside Phil Duvall. Say hi, Phil.
Hello.
Today, it's another installment of your favorite and ours, Project Melway. Project Melway, brought to you
Ooh.
by the Gibsonian Institute. Today, Phil, what are we talking about? What latest entry into the Mel Gibson filmography are we discussing?
So, folks, here's the deal. Okay, if you're just joining us, every week Andy and I are watching a Mel Gibson movie, a movie that is starring Mel Gibson,
Yes.
and we are watching his entire filmography in chronological order.
Chronological.
And chronological. Anyways,
Chronological. Yep, go.
chronologic. And anyhow, that's happening,
That's
and
happening.
It's been pretty touch and go lately, folks. It's been hit and miss. It's been hit and miss. We watched a movie this week called The River. The River.
The
Last
River.
week we watched The Bounty, and it was awesome. It was with Anthony Hopkins and Daniel Day-Lewis and Liam Neeson and Mel Gibson, and it was a swashbuckling tale based on the Mutiny on the Bounty. Very interesting and incredible amounts of nudity.
Much
This
needed.
movie was called The River, and it is awful. It is one of I'm trying to think of a nice way. It's just nothing nice to.
I gotta be
There's
honest,
things,
Phil. I gotta be honest with you. I feel like calling it awful is nice.
there are things to be said for it, and we will discuss them. But
Yes.
first, a plot. The movie is called The River. A husband and wife who are farmers have their farm right next to. Are you ready for it? A river.
No way.
Yeah, they're in a valley, and the movie
Spoiler.
starts with the river. The
Yep.
movie starts with the river flooding,
Mm-hmm.
and it floods their crops.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is something that apparently happens quite often, and people's crops are getting flooded in this Kentucky town, and instead of moving, they get angry and get mad at the fact that it's flooding. Mel Gibson gets particularly mad. He's the gorgeous farmer surrounded by everyone else that looks totally normal. Which here's the thing with Andy, I'd be fine if he was the gorgeous farmer surrounded by everyone else looking completely normal. If every once in a while someone was like, "Yeah, what's his name in the movie?"
Oh, I don't
Jack?
even know.
Okay, let's just say Jack.
Yeah.
We'll just say Mel. Why
Yeah.
even pretend?
Right.
Well, there goes Mel. He sure is better looking than the rest of us. Like, like when Salma Hayek walks down the street in Desperado, cars crash.
Yes. Yes.
As if to say, we recognize that in this tiny little Mexican town, this woman is the most gorgeous thing that ever happened to exist, ever.
Yes.
But
Yes.
when Mel Gibson walks around as a poor farmer, everyone just acts like, and they're all like total slack-jawed yokels. It's total, like, it's not, it's my daughter crying because this movie bothered her so much.
She has excellent taste already. I'll tell you.
Uh,
I'll tell you. As attractive as he is in this movie, that is how bad his accent is.
oh, I didn't think his accent was bad.
Oh, you have no taste. That was if you're gonna do this to me, you have the decency to do it yourself. Oh,
I did not notice a problem with his accent, but I am willing to be wrong.
it was like
I
listening,
will not.
and the way
Let
he
me put it this
slowed
way.
his.
That's not a ditch I will die in.
That's
He
fair,
campaigned.
and it's not a ditch I'll die in either. But I'll say this: if you're Mel Gibson and you're playing the lead, you shouldn't remind me of Lenny from Of Mice and Men. I mean, like, you know, like, well,
I I read an article that said that, or a thing about it that said that he really campaigned hard to get this role, and the guy who directed it had just directed a movie on Golden Pond, for
yes,
which he had been nominated for several awards, including Best Director, Best Film, and Henry Fonda and Katharine Hepburn both won for Best Actor and Best Actress. So this was that
yes,
guy's next movie.
yeah, on
So
Golden
people were
Pond,
really excited to be in it. People were really,
significantly better movie than this movie.
obviously. So people were like really itching to be in it. Mel Gibson, it was Mel Gibson's really his first American film.
Sure,
And the
sure.
first time he plays, this is a very big deal, The River. Because the first time that I can think of No, well, we've seen them all. This is the first time when Mel Gibson straight up plays an American.
Yeah, no,
Campaigned
you're
really,
right.
really hard to get the role, and part of the thing was the director didn't think he could do the accent, and then he convinced him that he could, and he convinced Sissy Spacek, who's actually from the South. But apparently Andy is not pleased, so I don't want to argue about that
No,
because
nor I.
Andy said it wasn't a good accent. I didn't notice a problem with it, but the point is, it's just incredulous that he doesn't. He just looks like a model compared to everybody else.
It's true.
But anyways. So this farmer and a bunch of other farmers who are poor and whose crops keep getting destroyed, they don't have enough money. Their farms are being repossessed. It's a terrible time, and it's set in the appropriate time. It's set in the in the 80s. It's not in which is when it was filmed. It's not
Yes.
a period piece.
Right. It's set now.
Now here's where the plot thickens.
Ugh.
There is a terrible bad guy. This terrible bad guy is a millionaire who's from the same area, but who has been much more successful.
Yes.
And so he must be evil. Because as we know, rich people are evil in movies. I think for being so good at handling their money and not being idiots. That makes them vampiric, blood-sucking bad people. I don't want to get into how all movies are made by pinkos, but it feels like that sometimes. Now, so all that aside, this is why this guy's a bad guy. You ready for this? He wants to build a dam that would flood the valley where Mel Gibson lives and all the other farmers.
True statement.
Now, right there you go, oh, well, that's not cool.
Right.
So is he going about it in really underhanded ways? No.
Nope.
He's trying to pay them fair price for their farms, and in the meantime, when they won't sell him, he still buys their crops from them at reasonable prices, even though they don't like the prices that he's doing. They're still reasonable.
Right.
And he's convincing them, trying to convince these people through logic and pleading to sell him their land so that he can build a dam, flood that area, control the continuously flooding river that keeps ruining their crops anyway, give them all money, and create more jobs for the neighborhood.
Phil?
This guy is the worst villain in the history.
Phil, what a monster.
What a terrible man.
What a monster. Oh.
Now, I know that I have certain free market leanings, but dear Lord, like I'm even Roger Ebert in his review, who is politically very liberal by his own admissions, was like, the problem with the bad guy in this movie is he makes sense. Like, he is so much easier to root for than the good guy.
Yes.
Mel Gibson's character is, I don't want to say unredeemable because he's not like a murderer. He's not like out kidnapping children.
Right,
he's just an idiot. He's just an idiot who's I don't want to root for him. I don't want to root for him.
He also the bad guy who is not the bad guy.
You are not the bad guy.
He is played by Scott Glenn, who is in The Right Stuff. He's wonderful. He's wonderful in Silverado. He's a guy that you root for, because he always plays a good guy. And in this movie, he also plays a good guy. But
he's got moments of sketchiness. Like, he's not perfect, but he's not a bad guy in the sense of, again, he's not doing anything underhanded, other than maybe trying to sleep with Mel Gibson's wife.
But even that, he's just like, hey, I know you're married.
Well, he's also like, hey, they clearly used to have a thing.
Oh, they clearly used to have a thing.
So he's like, hey, remember how we used to have a thing? And I'm not married anymore. And also, your husband's an idiot and is never around. And I am around and am a millionaire.
But in other 80s movies, he would be played by James Spader, and he would have like a sweater tied over his shoulders. And that is, I agree with you, that is sketchy, but he's not like, hey, baby, your husband's an idiot. I will love you like I used to. He's just like, I mean, I still have feelings for you, and your husband's an idiot, you know? Yep.
And he's not, I don't want to make him sound too good because there's really no one likable in this entire film.
The principal from Back to the Future, also not that likable, but
he's in it, and it made me really happy. I would actually say Sissy Spacek she got nominated for this film. It was also nominated for Best Cinematography and Best Sound Editing and some other things.
It's not an unattractive movie to look at.
Not at all. Beautiful, and it had some really good images and symbolism. It was well shot. Mm-hmm. It was a well shot, terrible film. Do you know who did the score for this particular film?
I confess to you, I don't.
I've lost you. Say it again. What would you
I
say?
do not. I don't know.
Oh, well, let me fill you in. It's a gentleman by the name of Mr. John Williams.
No, no, he did not. No, he did not.
And I wish you'd known that when you were watching it, because then it's got some of those like flowery, beautiful moments. It's not a bad soundtrack. It's not a bad score. It just doesn't matter. It's a terrible movie.
Right.
But there's some things that we need to talk about in this movie
Please
that I
do.
think are incredible developments in. First of all, but actually, I'm not ready for that. I have to say this about this movie.
Okay.
It tries to be nuanced and at the same time be the everyman film.
Yep.
But like everything that the good guys do is stupid. That's the problem. And like it's the problem is he even goes off. He goes off and works as a scab for a factory, but
Yes.
then because he needs to make money, but he doesn't realize that he's a scab until like what the job is until
Yeah,
they
until he
truck
gets there.
him into the factory. And then when they get there, by the way, the guy who runs the factory is like he's like the most evil character. He's like
he's a Dickens character. He's so evil.
he is. He's like,
Yes.
more gruel, please.
Yes.
No.
Interestingly, I'm glad that along these lines, and I only know this because of Ebert's review. This not only was I exhausted by the ridiculous ham-fistedness of this movie by the end of it. Apparently, this was the third movie in a very short amount of time with
In the same year.
Yeah, the same year, on a similar topic, and it was the one that came out third. So
Right.
if I were actually going to
Right.
movies in '84 whenever this came out, and I saw all three of these movies, I would have been ready to punch an usher on my way out of the theater after seeing this movie.
In the face.
In the face. That's all I want to say about that.
Okay, so there's a couple developments. Folks, here's the deal. We're doing this Project Melway, brought to you by the Gibsonian Institute, and it's really part of what we were interested in is just tracing the career of this gentleman.
Yeah.
He hasn't been called that in a while. Tracing the career of our friend Mel and seeing like are there patterns? Are there things that we can start to see develop? And I noticed two distinct patterns that are emerging in the Mel Gibson oeuvre.
Yes. I can't wait to hear him.
One we've already said, but I want us to look out for it, and I want to articulate it more clearly.
All right.
Mel Gibson, gorgeous everyman surrounded by ugly people, and no one says anything about it. This is also what happens in Braveheart, when he plays the only person in Scotland with perfect teeth.
That's true. That is true.
Like, everybody else in Braveheart looks like they just rolled around in cow dung after being punched in the face. And then there's Mel Gibson, who looks like he just came out of the tanning salon with his gorgeous, gorgeous girlfriend.
Yes.
It's amazing.
Agreed.
Now, I haven't thought about this before now. And in the other movies, and here's the other thing that I think is important to notice. This is a point when Mel Gibson now is officially becoming super attractive. Just as a person, like I think Mel Gibson is handsomer in this movie. Like, he's better looking now than he was a couple years ago. Like, he's maturing into himself.
That's fair. That's
like,
fair.
in the sense that, like, I would say if you look at Mel Gibson now, like, if you saw him in the trifecta of crazy on the Golden Globes the other night, he looks like his ears are a little bigger because men's ears and noses grow throughout their entire lives, so we're done. And he looks a little older, and he's not as handsome as he was.
Right.
He hasn't aged as well as, say, Paul Newman. This is in no way a criticism. I think he has great character in his face. But
Right.
he's not. There was a point where he's now getting to that point where he is heartthrob Mel.
Yes. I think we saw that first. I think we saw that first in The Year of Living Dangerously, but I
think you're right.
agree with you.
But there were other gorgeous people in that movie. But
Agreed.
now, and that'll bring me to my second development in the Mel Gibson plot. But first, this. So we've got Braveheart coming up later. I want to look out now. Is this a trend or not? Will we see more Mel Gibson movies where it's like gorgeous person surrounded by normal people, and we're all acting like no one notices? Okay.
Okay.
I think that matters.
Okay.
That's numero one.
Ah, yes.
Okay, number B is this special development, which is Do you remember there was a point in the 2000s,
Okay.
in the early noughts,
Yeah. Yes.
when when the Yankees would like pick up some player that and I can't think of one of them now, and this is terrible, but it's probably better because most people don't care about baseball the way you and I do. So even if
Sure.
you don't care about sports, do not tune out. You will understand what I'm saying, even if you don't care about sports. Okay? There was this team called the Yankees of New York, and they wore stripes like pins on their shirts,
No.
pinstripes. And they would pick up these players that were just seemingly either washed up or not necessarily washed up, but not great.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden they'd be on the Yankees and like for no reason they'd become no explicable reason they'd just become better players. And I was getting into baseball at that time, living in Boston as a Red Sox fan at the time, and so it was especially frustrating. And I'd be like, "Why does this guy scare me? He shouldn't scare me. He's not a big deal anymore."
Okay.
And do you know what I mean by that?
I do. I do.
I can't think of one of these players right now, but I wanted to say Kenny Lofton, but then I looked at his numbers and they weren't actually
Chuck
in
Knobloch before he got the yips and couldn't throw to first base.
I mean, Gary Sheffield got better again. Well, I don't know. Just anyways,
Sure.
I don't know. People. It just happened.
Yeah.
It was like if you put on the pinstripes, all of a sudden it gave you an extra 10 points on your batting average for reasons that no one understood.
Right.
Andy, no, are you ready for the corollary?
I can't wait for the synergy here. Please develop. Go for it.
Andy and I saw a movie a while back called Tim, which was a Mel Gibson movie. And we were like, you know what's funny is I've never been attracted to Piper Laurie before. I've never found her attractive,
Right.
but she was attractive in this movie. It was very strange, especially because her character was really inappropriate. How you know where I'm going with this?
I do.
We started to watch The Year of Living Dangerously, and I said, Andy, I got to tell you, Sigourney Weaver was stunning in this film, and I have never thought of Sigourney Weaver stunning, but now I can't not think of Sigourney Weaver as beautiful because of her performance in this movie. All of a sudden, I'm thinking Sigourney Weaver is beautiful. Sissy Spacek was so attractive in this movie.
She is, yes.
And I have seen many Sissy Spacek movies. I've never, not all of them.
Right, sure.
And she's not, and I don't find, now let me be clear, Miss Spacek, wherever you are, not that you would ever watch our show, I've never thought of you as unattractive. You're a lovely lady, and you're a fine actor, by the way. Oh my goodness gracious. But I've never been like that heartthrob Sissy Spacek. One of the things I love about her is she's able, because she's not beauty queen, we're able to just watch her, and she does amazing things.
I agree with that.
She can be like in Carrie, she is a legitimate outcast.
Yeah.
And she has an odd look to her.
Yes.
Which is again not an unattractive thing, but she doesn't go for roles where she plays sirens. She never pretties herself up for things. She always kind of plays up the plainness of the Kentucky coal miner's daughter. That's kind of her deal.
I agree with that.
She, for whatever reason, because she's a farm woman in this movie. First of all, she's the strength of this character.
Yes.
The scene where she gets stuck under the tractor is one of only 2 good scenes in the entire film.
The entire movie. Ugh.
But it's a phenomenal scene.
I love that scene.
And as much as I didn't like this movie, I don't hate that she was nominated for an Academy Award for it.
No,
but here's what I'm going to say, because I'm a guy and I notice stuff like this. She's also beautiful in this movie. And I'm wondering, is Mel Gibson like the 2002 New York Yankees, where, like, all of a sudden when you're with Mel Gibson, you become more attractive?
Sure.
And so now I'm going to be watching with an eagle eye on these movies.
Interestingly, I don't necessarily disagree with you, and I'm excited to look at this myself. But unlike Mel Gibson in the movies that you mentioned, none of these people, they may stand out to you because you have never thought of these people as attractive before then. But Piper Laurie, to use your 3, Piper Laurie, Sigourney Weaver, and Sissy Spacek, they don't seem too attractive for their movies. Like
and Kenny Lofton and the other guys who got into the Yankees didn't all of a sudden become MVPs. They just got better.
Yes,
like
agreed.
They didn't become the superstar of the world. They just inexplicably became better than you ever noticed, and you'd get scared of them every once in a while.
Yeah, sure.
So it's not like they turned into Barry Bonds. So none of these 3 women all of a sudden became the most gorgeous person that ever lived, but all of them I find more attractive now.
Fair.
because of the movies they were in with Mel Gibson. Very strange. Very interested to see. This will be tested next week when we watch Mrs. Sofa, which is starring Diane Keaton, who I also have never been attracted to.
Awesome. I love it. I also I look forward to your crushes on Tina Turner, Rene Russo, and
Rene Russo. I mean,
oh, which is fair. Yeah, it's
done.
fair. It's fair
That
point.
happened a long time ago.
Yeah, it's
Rene
a fair point.
Rene Russo is like.
We'll get there. We'll get there. That's later on. That's later on in Project Melway. Is there? No, I will not hush. Is there anything else to say about this movie? I thank you for those comments, because I think since this movie is terrible, it's a good time to sort of take a step back and not only is it terrible, but it's also his first American movie. It's a good time to sort of take a step back and look at it from the Project Melway stance of where is he in the burgeoning sort of growth of his persona as a movie star.
I'm still thinking about Rene Russo. What
I know, and that's why I'm not
kidding.
paying any attention to you.
I'm kidding. I think you're right, and I think that he's reading about how hard he wanted this role. Or how hard he, whatever you want to say, jockeyed for this role.
Yeah,
I'm
campaigned for
really
the role,
interested
sure.
in the idea of Mel Gibson's ambition as an actor, trying to prove himself, working with a guy who had just gotten his last guy people had nominated for Academy Awards.
Yeah.
Working really hard to break into American cinema. From a narrative standpoint, this movie seems important in Mel Gibson's melography, or Gibsography. It just happens to be that it's terrible.
Filmography?
Oh, wow, that's good. I like that, man. I like
Thanks,
that a
man.
lot.
Thanks.
Like. It's a bad movie, but it makes sense. It was a sensible jump for him.
Agreed.
And we have Mrs. Soulful next, and then are we in Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome? Is that where we go?
In fact, we are. We go to Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome next week. Mrs. Soulful. Week after that, Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, and then the week after that, is it the first Lethal Weapon?
Oh yes, my friend.
Ugh.
Can I say something?
Please do.
Oh yes, my friend.
Yes.
By the way, I want to read the plot summary for Mrs. Soffel or Mrs. Soffel. I don't know how to pronounce it.
Okay.
Peter Soffel, don't know still, is the stuffy warden of a remote American prison around the turn of the century. Just so you know, I'm already bored. Turn of the century America is one of the least interesting times that movies ever happened.
Fair. It's a fair point. Well,
Although it says his wife, Kate, finds herself attracted to prisoner Ed Biddle. I'm guessing that's Mel Gibson.
it is. It is.
All right. So there's a prison escape. This could be a fun movie. Unfortunately, the cover makes it seem like it's impossible that it's a fun movie. But we'll see.
I hesitate to say this, but it's got to be better than The River. This is.
Guess who the warden is? Guess who the warden is in real life?
Who?
Edward Herrmann.
I'm sold. Already better than The River.
Listen to who else is in this movie. Matthew Modine.
Awesome.
Terry O'Quinn.
Awesome.
Terry John Locke stepfather O'Quinn. And then some other people. Who cares? There's no way this can fail. This is too big to fail. If you don't know who Edward Herrmann is in Lost Boys. I won't tell you who he is in Lost. He's the adult Max in Lost Boys. We'll leave it at that because I don't want to ruin it if you haven't seen Lost Boys.
Yes.
He is also he is in Overboard. He plays Goldie Hawn's rich husband in Overboard, which is a classic 80s film.
Agreed.
If we were going to do a Goldie Hawn filmography next, which I would not object to, I would be Overboard is one of her great.
Goldie Hawn's wonderful in it. It's wonderful.
Silly Man, Rex Rexroth, which is a phenomenally underrated Coen Brothers film, Intolerable Cruelty. I recommend it highly if you've never seen Intolerable Cruelty.
For TV fans out there, he played Grandpa Gilmore on The Gilmore Girls.
Yes, that's correct. Good.
By
TV fans, you mean Gilmore Girl fans, because I'm a TV fan and I'm not a Gilmore Girl fan, just for the record.
I mean, it's beautiful people making fun of each other for an hour a week. I don't know how you're not a fan of that show.
There's a number of ways. I think you and I have discussed, and I'll say this really briefly because I have seen Gilmore Girls. I think that I would watch Gilmore Girls. There was an attractive girl that liked to hang out with me but would never actually kiss me.
Nice.
I'm not naming names, but her name was Jamie. And she liked watching Gilmore Girls. And so I liked watching Gilmore Girls with her because I was an idiot in my early 20s and would do things like that. Like, I'll watch this show with you and then just sit there with a girl that had no interest in me. Now, and everyone in it was good. But here's the thing. We've discussed that I have issues.
Yeah.
Period. No, just kidding. We've discussed that I have issues with cleverness.
It is
clever. It is like Aaron Sorkin. It's like bubblegum Aaron Sorkin.
I don't disagree with you.
Although I actually like it more than Aaron Sorkin because even though it's bubblegum, it doesn't take itself as seriously as Aaron Sorkin. Because Aaron Sorkin is super, super clever and trying to show you how smart he is, where this is super, super clever and just trying to create lovable characters.
I love you like a brother. We have gotten far afield at this moment.
We're not off. I'm not even done yet. I have to say one more thing.
Oh,
Here's my biggest critique. No, it's fine. Who cares?
No, please. No. Go for it.
Here's my biggest problem with the Gilmore Girls. Are you ready?
Please, tell me.
It is really hard to watch a show where you're not sure if you're more attracted to the mother or the daughter. I mean, maybe it's not hard. It makes me uncomfortable. It makes me uncomfortable. Where I'm like,
that's fair.
This also happened at Friday Night Lights, but for some reason in Friday Night Lights it worked through the pain.
No, that's fair. That's fair. I have to be honest. Maybe the reason that I don't identify with that is it wasn't a question for me because the answer was absolutely the mom. Just absolutely.
Maybe that was my problem too. Is it made me sad? It made me sad for the daughter. Like, you'll never be as hot as your mom. That's not fair.
That's totally
That's a terrible thing.
Yeah.
Remember my friend in college, my roommate in college. He had, no matter what adventure he did, he'd come home and be like, I canoed down the river. I canoed down the Amazon with just a toothpick. And his dad was the kind of dad who'd be like, oh, yeah, I did that once in college. Converted a whole tribe to a religion about me. It was like, no matter what he did, his dad had already done it better.
Right.
That's just a recipe for disaster.
It's like the Woody Harrelson Jesse Eisenberg exchange in Zombieland. Where he's like, "Are you this guy that like has to one up everything?" And Woody Harrelson goes, "That's not true. I know somebody way worse at that than me." Right?
In retrospect, or in conclusion, don't see The River.
River is terrible.
Here's other movies with the word river in them that you could see instead. A river runs through it.
Beautiful movie. Glorious movie.
One of my favorite terrifying movies of the 80s, River's Edge.
Yes.
Which is not for the faint of heart.
No.
And if anyone says 80s movies were fluffy and light, I will recommend this film to them and then tell them to shut their faces.
Indeed.
I've never seen The River Wild, but it's got David Strathairn and Meryl Streep and Kevin Bacon. It's better.
Indeed.
It's better. I'm just telling you it's better without having seen it.
It has to be.
Deliverance doesn't have the word river in it, but it's about a river, and it's better.
Right. Anything with River Phoenix.
Anything with River Phoenix is better, except for Johnny. He made a movie called no, not everything. There's a couple bad River Phoenix movies, believe it or not. But by and large, you'll be better off with
so we're all good here.
Anything with the title River in it is going to be better than the movie The River.
Yes, agreed.
Red River, Rio Bravo, which is Espanol for river.
Agreed.
Okay. I'm done.
We're done here. We got to move on because I'm just going to be sad that we've talked this long about The River. Folks, don't see The River. Do tune in next time for Project Melway when we discuss Mrs. Soffel.
Or Soffel. We haven't decided yet. Can I say one more thing about Project Melway? It's about Project Melway.
I see no way of stopping you. Go ahead.
You could. I'd listen to you. I defer to you. But why would you want to? I want to get a little meta here. I want to take a step back and think on a meta level for a second.
Okay.
I love the show that we're doing.
Me too.
And I love working with you. And the people who like our show love our show, and we're having a really good time.
Yes.
For whatever reason, and I'm not really bothered. I'm not bothered by this. I don't lose sleep over it. But Project Melway is certainly not the most popular segment of our show.
I think that's fair.
And I think people, and I don't know why that is, although I could come up with some ideas.
Sure.
And I'm going to say something like ridiculously pointlessly arrogant right now, but I tend to think some of our best conversations are about these bad Mel Gibson movies that people haven't seen. And I kind of like, I wish we could figure out a way to tell you guys, spread the word about Project Melway, because it's secretly some of our best stuff. But you know what? You live, you learn. There's not much we can do about it. Someday, this will all be recorded for
You
posterity.
live, you learn. Sorry, you went Alanis on me for a second, and I wanted to
Every once in a while, I just go Alanis on
you just
people.
go Alanis. That's what Project Melway does to us. It turns us into Alanis Morissette. We are poets of our time. Um,
I'm already excited for the next movie, but then I'm already excited for the next person we do this for, and I don't even know who it will
I
be, and we're
agree with
not
you.
even
I
halfway,
agree with
and
you.
we're not even, and it's not because I'm tired of Mel Gibson movies. It's because I'm like, once we've done this, I'm like, we're gonna do this
Yeah,
again
this
with
is
another
this is a
actor.
fun this is a fun experiment. This is also a conversation that these wonderful people who indulge us do not need
Why
to
are
hear.
waiting on you now?
Second Breakfast Nation, we love you guys. The next movie will be better because it has to be. We'll see you again real soon. I'm
Okay,
Andy Roth. That's Phil Duvall. Bye bye.
bye bye.